Welcome to the C-Level Strategy Series with Jon Arnold. This series delves deeply into the issues business owners and leaders face each day as they operate their businesses in a post-pandemic world.
How do you retain the best talent, and how has it changed relative to the past 5 to 10 years?
So, I guess I can answer that two ways. Within our organization, it's a lot of the things you guys have already said, and that's just creating this culture where they want to be there, they enjoy each other, and there's built of that trust so they can share and help each other, build off of each other. But again, back to being an organization that represents multiple businesses, we're trying to help every company retain that talent and have them come back. And it really varies. And part of it is in the talent retention area is just getting them in situations where they don't have the home distractions sometimes or the financial distractions. Financial literacy is a real detriment, or illiteracy, I should say, to retaining an employee. We're going to launch a program, I think, this summer, maybe this fall, where with a nonprofit organization, we're going to have a couple pilots in the community where we'll have social workers / financial coaches embedded in the workplace. And every time there's an issue, that the employees will get comfortable with that worker being in there, that social worker / financial coach. We've seen a lot of members, for example, where an employee's car breaks down and they just never hear from that employee again, ever. And the employee had no money to get the car fixed and just stopped showing up. And so this financial coach will be in there to say, okay, you know what, you don't have money, you haven't saved anything. We have a financial institution that will come in and say, here's the loan, here's $1,000, go get your car fixed. Don't miss any work. And in the meantime, we'll set you up with a payment plan that comes out of your paycheck with interest over the next 12 months. At the end of the 12 months, this financial coach is working with you to convince you that, okay, you know what, you've survived without that deduction for the last 12 months. Keep letting them deduct that. We'll give you back your interest as long as you open up a savings account with that institution and continue to put money into that account, so the next time your car breaks down, you're not distracted. And the emotional distraction from those kinds of things, knowing that, my God, if the refrigerator breaks, if the kid breaks his arm, if my car breaks down, man, I'm never going to be able to come back and get this job again. So just taking that kind of pressure off, that goes a long way towards retaining workers. And if you think about the kind of jobs we have in this community, that could be a valuable asset. So a lot of different unique ways that we're trying to explore to help employers retain the talent that they have.
Barb, you lead on that?
I would say that our first rule of life and life at YBI is family first. We recognize that there are a lot of distractions out there, and especially the lessons that the last year have taught us are that people who have kids at home who are suddenly being homeschooled are dealing with an entirely different reality than those who have not, and all of those different things. And we have to respect those challenges and all of the day-to-day issues that come up and allow people to have the space that they need in order to address that while still doing their job. And I don't think you can set different expectations for people. Everybody needs to have a high level of expectation. You feel better when you know that you're expected to achieve, but you also know that your employer has your back, and that if a family crisis comes up, you are given the leeway and the latitude to take the time that you need to address that. I would also say that part of having a successful culture is to know when to let somebody move on. And we've had cases where people were offered a better job, higher salaries. We're a nonprofit. We often don't have the most competitive salaries. We try to have the best culture. We try to make this family. It's a cool place to work. We've always wanted to be that really edgy, cool place to be. But when somebody's ready to move on, you're generally better off allowing them to move on and to grow into the direction that they want to grow, and to backfill that position and bring somebody else in. If you've got somebody who is part of the part of your team who's ready to not be part of that team anymore, you can find that that's disruptive. Mm-hmm. And we all have those stories where you've got that one person who's not carrying the weight and everybody else is having to pick up an extra bit of load, and that doesn't serve anybody as that well either. So I think employee retention is a double-edged sword. You've got to do it, and we want to do it. We want our employees to be happy, and we want them to be happy here. But if this isn't the right place, you also have to be willing to acknowledge that and allow them to move on and to support those decisions. And I think we balance that out pretty well.
I like what you just said, and that's something that we practice as well. I want my people to better themselves. And if that means moving on to a better opportunity, I'll do everything I can to help you make that big leap, because then the reputation gets out there that this is a good place to come and work and get supported and advance your career.
Bob, I'll repeat the question for you. How do you retain the best talent of your 250 people, and how has it changed relative to the past 5 to 10 years?
I think the biggest thing we try to accomplish is to be aware at the beginning of the process. Bad hire is costly, and especially in our culture, because as I just said earlier, we can't invest enough every day in our folks. So there's a couple of things I think we try to be aware of. First thing is there's a generational change. You know, we're hiring kids that I'm their granddad. That's okay. But I'm the grumpy granddad too, you know. So in trying to be aware of the generational changes, is instead of imposing what I went through or our other people went through and experienced in business and says, this is what you have to go through, being aware that you have a different audience. Mm-hmm. And with that, then being able to articulate, we have a very value-based interview process. So we don't really care about the degrees. It's what did you do that made you unique as a person? What price have you paid? We have it's not good or bad, but we have a habit of hiring a lot of athletes. But by the same token, we hire people that have been orchestra first chair in whatever instrument they play. The reason behind that is there's a theme with that individual that they've paid a price to achieve something. They bring that with them.
Goal-oriented.
Yeah, that knowledge of what it takes is transferable. So we try to relate generationally to their interests, but in that context, which you're right, Barb, you know, you can't save the world. And I think sometimes that happens. I'm sure it's happened at our place. I'm sure I've done it, where you're trying to save the person, but you just can't break through, and you got to let him go. But what we do then is, in bringing in talent, we do a fairly quick identification from a go-forward strategy of where they could fit in the organization, and we move people around in different disciplines. So we'll move people out of engineering into sales, into finance. One of our guinea pigs that survived that and has thrived is not too far from here at Juggerbot with Zach DiVincenzo. You know, he came in as an intern, worked through the engineering group, made him an innovation manager, was into the commercial end of our business with sales as well. And we knew the inevitable was going to come. And we celebrate those when they happen. And the reason why we celebrate them is that the kids that have left us, and I say that in an endearing way, the kids that have left us have all come to us 3-6 months in advance and sat down in tears sometimes and said, I need to go to this path. So I think part of our charter in life is obviously we have to fixate on what's good for our people, what's good for the company, so the company continue to thrive. But I think we can be a place where kids can gain experiences at no other place in manufacturing. And then they can go and they can then cast their own shadow and have the same type of culture and impact on other people. Because at the end of the day, when we close our eyes, no one's going to say, what the hell is your EBITDA? They're going to say, who did you touch? Mm-hmm. So we try to keep about those things as we're hiring and be aware of the generational changes. And then to Barb's point, make the tough decision when you need to, because we're very clear on expectations. and we will have that tough conversation. We don't wait for annual review. I think that's such a hypocrisy with the old review systems, We nip it right then and there, and it's not an ultimatum, it's a choice. You have to make the choice when we sit down and talk to a person. You have to make the choice, are you going to be aligned with our organizational purpose and philosophy or not? It's not good or bad, but you have to make a choice. So that's how we handle those things.
So, John, I think a more serious question is, how's it going to change over the next 5 to 10 years? Because Bob alluded to valuing the person versus the skills, and the athlete or the orchestra member concept, where you learn all those things about leadership and trust and loyalty and responsibility. But as a result of COVID, over the next 5 to 10 years, we're going to have a culture where more and more kids are into this remote learning, not having the opportunity to interact, to engage socially, to be in situations where they're part of a team. And so I'm looking at next 5 to 10 years and thinking, my gosh, how's that going to change our workforce?
You think there's that much of a reset in our workforce?
I'm worried about that reset in the educational system that then causes the reset in the workforce.
Thanks for watching the video. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that little bell for notifications. And also make sure to connect with us on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. For all of your business news, visit businessjournaldaily.com. For all of your arts and entertainment news, go to afterhoursyoungstown.com.